I can chuckle. Steven's a big boy. He can take a punch from old Gus there. And Steven can take a punch better than people like Andy Sullivan can take the truth.
First off, let me explain something to you about unions. Okay, including the studio I'm sitting in right now, I built.
You didn't build that. And one of those truths is that the unions are a bunch of bullies. And the unions are going down like our grouchy friend here. Andy also shows that he can't take the truth when he tries to say that Crowder pushed this dude down.
I saw that guy's back go down, and then he came up off his feet. Yeah, there he is. What is that?
Okay, I taught martial arts for a lot of years, and it looks very apparent that the reason why Twisty Britches was on the ground here was because he overcommitted to his attack. Operative word here being attack. His footing did not sustain the force of the punches he was executing, or he was top-heavy and tried to grapple Steven with too much forward leaning and lost his balance. Andy tries to say that Steven pushed him down. I reckon that would defy the laws of physics to push somebody down and they fall past you instead of backwards in front of you. But just like Andy is in denial about who the aggressor is in this event, he is also in denial when it comes to the detrimental effects of the unions. These people can't see the sickening selfishness of unions. Unions think that they do the worker a service when they guarantee good wages, benefits, and protection. But while unions only focus on what they can get, they forget or just simply don't care what it costs other people who have to part with more of their money that they worked hard for just so they can pay for what the unions demand. The cost of unions come down on the consumer, in effect making it harder for people to make ends meet for their families. Union workers are typically liberal. Liberals always try to pose themselves as their brother's keeper. That's bull on two fronts. One, they expect someone else to be their brother's keeper. And two, as I said, if they really cared about their brother, they wouldn't impose more of an expense on them and would do their job at fair market value. It's so funny how liberals always act like they're so above money, yet are the most rabid when it comes to how much they can get. They accuse others of being greedy while trying to justify forcing people to paying them more. I'm Alfonso Rachel with Zone Nation, where I would definitely vote for California to be a right-to-work state.
Including the studio I'm sitting in right now, I built.
You didn't build that.
All right. Alfonso Rachel from TJTV. You got to love him. He's awesome. I really enjoy his pieces. And he always finds a way to kind of relate the stories out there where everyone can understand them.
Right.
And I thought he did a great piece with this.
Yeah, California, right-to-work state. What do you think about that?
I think it's not going to happen.
No. It doesn't fit
with the
Moonbeam agenda.
And I know we're kind of hitting these boom, boom, boom like this, but I got one last piece. Now, this is actually in Michigan, this last little clip here that I want to play in this segment, so that we can really get into the meat of this. All right? Okay. This last little clip is actually from Michigan, and the good reverend here is basically being a union guy.
All right.
My name is the Reverend Charles Williams II, and I'm glad to be standing with my union brothers and sisters here in Lansing, Michigan. There's no better place that I would want to be than giving Rick Snyder hell on today, y'all. Just know one thing, Rick Snyder. It's a dick. You sign that bill, you won't get no rest. Right. We'll meet you on Getty's Road. We'll be at your daughter's soccer game. We'll visit you at your church. We'll be at your office. Because Michigan workers will not take it laying down by any means necessary. Come on, make some noise.
Think we can call that segment "Stupid Things That Union People Say."
Yeah, because well, you know, I would call that stalking myself. And if they showed up at my event that had to do with my daughter, then the use of necessary force, you know,
may be authorized.
Right.
Well, I mean, and this kind of flies in the face that this is not how union people behave, and we're peaceful, and we only want what's right. Yeah, right. Okay, buddy. So what we have here is a clear illustration of union thug mentality. Now, what's really at stake here, people? Let's be more analytical about this. Now, me, I am rabidly anti-union. They drive the price of everything that you buy up. They encourage mediocrity in the workplace. They cover over for less than adequate employees, and they basically just make a mess of everything they touch. They drive it into the ground, and then they move on to the next target. We already talked about this. Hostess, General Motors, Chrysler again back in the early back in the 80s. I mean, we could name lists of well, this could go on and on if we just started listing off companies that the unions have screwed over. But what is this right to work? What does it really mean? What does it entail? Well, folks, right to work is simply what it says. You have a right to get a job without having to pay union fees to be eligible to get to work. Having never lived in a union quote-unquote state, it boggles my mind that in order for me to get hired anywhere, that I would have to necessarily join a union. I don't want to join a union. The unions don't stand for what I do, for what I stand for. They take the money that I give them and then get Democrats elected so that they can continue on the socialist path. That's not my belief system. If I lived in Michigan now, I would be dancing in the streets. But what are the union people calling right to work laws? Well, as the guy who tried to punch Steven Crowder, the Fox News contributor, in the face, said, he called it the freedom to freeload. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, the labor unions claim that when they bargain, when they do their collective bargaining, they include all the workers, and that these non-union people, well, they get to enjoy the benefits of these collective bargaining without footing any of the bill. Well, okay. If that were true, I could see where you had a problem with that, but it's not. Under the National Labor Relations Act, unions are free to represent all employees, not just union members at the bargaining table, but they are not required to do so. Now, the NLRA does not mandate unions exclusively represent employees, but permits them to do so. Now, they can also negotiate members-only contracts that only cover dues-paying members, and they don't have to represent the other employees. Now, the free rider argument implies that workers' union dues would go at least predominantly toward, getting them better compensation or other workplace benefits, but that's not the case either. In fact, less than 25%, more like around 24% of expenditures by Michigan's 25 largest private sector unions, they go towards, less than 25% of that money actually goes towards actually representing the workers. Now, this comes to me from the LM2 filings coming from the Labor Department's website. The number one union with the highest expenditures in Michigan for 2011 was SEIU Healthcare Michigan. They had a total expenditure of $19,476,147. They listed their representation expenditures at $2.989 million, or basically $2.99 million. That's 15%. 15.35% of their expenditures actually went to representing their union members. But where did the rest of the money go? Well, expenditures, benefits, political activity, and quote-unquote general overhead. Now, I don't know about you folks, but why only 15% of that? And the numbers range on these top 25 from as low as 7.6%, or the lowest on the list was 4.94% of their expenditures actually went to representation. and that came from Boilermakers Local 169, to a highest of 42.05% for Ironworkers Local 25. So the lion's share of that money, of their expenditures, doesn't go to activities that are related to the representation. So what? You're telling me that these quote-unquote freeloaders are bringing you down? It's got nothing to do with it. Everybody there has to join a union until the governor there, Governor Snyder, signs the bill. These people are bloodthirsty, self-centered, self-aggrandizing jerk-offs that don't give a crap about the working guy. You know, SEIU Healthcare Michigan, $19 million in expenditures, and less than $3 million of it went to actual representation expenditures. Where did the other $16 million go? Overhead? The hell kind of overhead do you have?
Well, how many Democrats' pockets did it go into?
Well, there you go. I think that's more likely. The second highest expenditure was UFCW Local 876, which took in just under $11.6 million. Their representation expenditures were actually higher than the SEIU Healthcare Michigan. Theirs were almost $3.4 million, for 29% of their expenditures came from representation. So when they try to tell you it's the right to freeload, that's garbage, people. You know what? Employers all around the country every day negotiate individually with their employees for their compensation. If you work in a right-to-work state, you negotiated with your employer when you first got hired for your compensation. I did. When I took the job I have currently, I negotiated for my compensation. I did it individually. My employer negotiated with me individually. There was no one salary fits all. Now, some people are better at negotiating than others, and some I'm fairly good at it. I got almost at the maximum for my level at that time. Didn't know that, but I negotiated for a dollar value that I thought I was worth, and my company agreed with me, and that was my starting salary. On the other hand, there's been people who came into that same job who got substantially less because, well, they didn't negotiate well. Well, that's not fair. Well, is it not? Is it not?
No, of course it's not.
What? Are they as good as I? Maybe. Maybe they're even better at the job than I was. But, hey, I was a good negotiator. Now, I don't begrudge anyone who was able to negotiate themselves a higher starting salary than I have. You know, it's been some years since I started that job, and, you know, times they are a-changing. So with that, starting salaries also change. The point is, it's left between you and your employer. That's the beauty of this right to work. You know, as an employer myself now, I negotiate with people I hire. Okay, well, I see from your experience and your qualifications, I have that you are qualified to fill the job that I have open, and this is a salary range at which I would like that I can afford to pay for that job, and you're going to shoot me a number, I'm going to shoot you a number. And of course, we're going to start at opposites ends of the spectrum. Now, most of the time, we meet somewhere in the middle. Sometimes we meet closer to their starting number. Sometimes we meet closer to my starting number. But the point is that a negotiation takes place. And that employee is responsible for their negotiation, just as I'm responsible to my superiors for negotiating a fiscally responsible salary for that person. And that's basically what this argument comes down to, is fiscal responsibility, personal responsibility. Is it my job as your employer to make sure that everyone's paid the same? Well, no. This guy over here can bust butt and put out 10 times as many widgets as this guy over here. Now, why should the two of them make the same amount of money?